Hey y'all, so we are wrapping up 2020 by wrapping up The Great Hunt, which is the second book in Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, and then we're also going to be doing predictions for the third book. Let's go. So for The Great Hunt, I had 5 predictions, and I was right on all of them except for 1 and like a half. So one of them was kind of cheating. I predicted that we would be reading about The Great Hunt, that's what this book would be about. I was kind of right. I know at the beginning we already had the horn, but then something happens and it's taken and it's lost. So we do spend a good portion of the book trying to get the horn back. We do finally get it back and then we lose it again, only to get it back again. How many times was that? It was several times. Basically, we get the horn and we lose it a couple times. I also predicted that we would have more backstory for both Moraine and the Aes Sedai as a whole. We did get some information about Moraine and Lan, and then we also did kind of learn about the Aes Sedai in a general sense. We do see where the girls are practicing, they're being trained at Tar Valon, and so we do get to see some information about how the inner workings of the training happens and the testing like Nynaeve goes through. So we do get to learn a little bit more about that. My third prediction was that the party would be split up again, which I guess is kind of also a cheat prediction because I feel like through several of these books, a group or a portion of the party is going to be split off from the other pretty much at all times. It's kind of how it feels, at least for these first 2 books. So I guess I was kind of a gimme, but they still were separated, but they were brought back together at the end. I also predicted that we would not find out who the dragon was in The Great Hunt, and this is the one that I was completely flat out wrong on because we find out that Rand is the dragon. We find it out, it's said very point blankly that he is the dragon. I just didn't really expect to find that out so early in the series. However, it does make sense. I'm not upset that we find out so soon. It just means that there's more room for him to do grand things as the dragon. And then the last prediction was that either Matt or Rand would be the dragon. I put Matt in there as, I guess, as a safety net because I wasn't sure if it would actually be so obvious that Rand would be the dragon. I felt like he was the obvious choice, and I thought that maybe Jordan might try to subvert that chosen one trope to make it Matt, just, to be a little more interesting. I thought that might be something that he would do, but this is a very traditional type of fantasy, and so I shouldn't have hedged. I should have just kept my prediction at Rand was going to be the chosen one, the Dragon Reborn, and he is. In the beginning of the book, we are leaving the city, and it's with Rand and the Armelin seat, but we don't know whose life is attempted at that time. It's either the Armelin seat or Rand. There's an arrow that's shot and it misses them. And we do later learn that Ingtar was the one responsible for letting that person into the city and that shot being made. He is a dark friend, but he's not the one that made the shot. And he even tells Rand at the end of the book that he's not sure if it was meant for Rand or if it was meant for the Armelin seat. So that, I remember being so frustrated at the beginning of the book because I felt like this attempt was made on their life and then they just leave and they don't talk about it anymore at all. But then a couple of chapters down the road they do, and they do bring it back at the end. I just remember thinking it was kind of weird, but they did kind of bring that back, so that was understandable. So we do get to talk a little bit to the Armelin seat, and we learn that honestly the Aes Sedai are not very sisterly like they like to portray to those outside of their sisterhood. They are very, I guess, cliquish, is that even the right word? They kind of stick to their own color, basically. They even use the red Ajah as a threat against other Aes Sedai sisters, so I'm kind of confused as to why they would do that to each other, why one color is said to be the, I don't know, the punishers of their order. I guess there has to be some kind of consequences if a sister steps out of line, but it's just it's a very weird dynamic, and I'm very interested in it. I want to see more intricate relationships between these sisters, and I like that it's not super Girl Scouty and how they're not just all friends. They do have some inner drama that is going to play a part, but that doesn't necessarily mean that each of these Aes Sedai are evil. However, there are Black Ajah who are dark friends, but I do like that each of the factions have their own beliefs, their own way of doing things, their own way of thinking, and that kind of causes some conflict even if they're both on the same side and have the same goals. It's just they might have different plans or strategies on how to accomplish that goal. So in chapter 5, which is kind of early on, we do meet Leandrin, and I knew that I didn't like her from the very beginning because she's burning books, and I remember saying that kind of as a joke that I hate Leandrin because she loves books. Obviously she's a piece of trash. But I didn't know just how terrible Leandrin would be. I didn't realize how just shitty she would be and how much I would hate her by the end of this book, because she basically betrays Nynaeve and Egwene, Min, and Elaine. Egwene actually ends up captured, so does Min, but she's not treated the same as Egwene because she's not a channeler, but they're both captured and Nynaeve and Elaine have to save them. So it's just, that whole story arc was very interesting, and at the time when this flip happened, I actually kind of forgot that Leandrin was probably a bad person because I had to take so much time off when I got sick and things with my husband, so I had to take some time off and just kind of forgot that little very important piece of information, but I remembered very quickly once that chapter happened. Also regarding Leandrin, I did realize when I was kind of going back through some of my notes that Leandrin left Tar Valon and followed Moraine and Lan when they left, but then she comes back, and then at that point that's when she takes the girls to the Seanchan, I should say. So what I didn't catch the first time around was at that point Moraine is attacked by Drakkar, and they have to end up leaving where they are at with another brown Ajah. And it didn't click for me when I first read it, but I think that Leandrin is probably the one that set up the Drakkar, because it was cloaked in a way that only a magic user would be able to do. That way Moraine was almost taken in by this Drakkar, and I didn't really realize that on my first read through, and I think it was probably Leandrin that is responsible for that attack. And then she came back and took the girls to the Seanchan at that time. So let's talk a little bit about Rand. In the beginning of the book, he has these delusions that he basically killed the Dark One, that he is not the Dragon Reborn, and even with his conversations with the Everland seat, after being told explicitly that he was the dragon, he still almost doesn't believe it. And I completely understand his way of thinking at this point. It does make sense that he would try to push back a little bit. He doesn't want to be the dragon, and so he thinks, because there's been so many of these false dragons, how can they possibly be sure that he is the true Dragon Reborn? I also had some issue with Rand being put in second command of basically the little mini army that's going out after this horn. Well, I don't take that back, because I do still feel that it was very weird for someone as young as Rand to just be second in command after having no military experience, hardly any fighting experience at this point. It was just a very strange choice. However, when he and Loyal and Ingtar are taken to this basically another timeline or another dimension via the portal stone, he really does rise up to the responsibility of being in charge. He's basically in charge. Ingtar and Loyal both look to him for leadership, and he does a great job in taking care of them. He uses a void to kill these creatures that are, coming after them at certain points, and I feel like he really does do a good job. So I kind of take that back. I was giving Rand a little bit of shit for not quite being ready, and he wasn't, but now he really is growing as a character, and he's getting these leadership qualities that he's really going to need. And in hindsight, and someone in the comments also brought this up, that was a good way for him to have to learn these qualities and skills, is being forced into that role. And even if he hadn't been taken by the Portal Stone, him being in second command probably would have given him some of these skills and the experience that he might need to keep going with this. We also know that while Ingtar and Perrin are together, because there's like this just big time span of them being together and working together before and after the whole Portal Stone situation. I'm kind of going all over the place. I'm not necessarily going in book order for this. I'm sorry. But Perrin does tell Ingtar about his ability to communicate with wolves, and Ingtar swears that he won't tell anybody, and as far as we know, he doesn't tell anybody. However, we do learn that Ingtar is a dark friend. I kind of wonder, did he keep this secret? Is this really a secret? Did he report this power to someone that shouldn't know? One of my favorite chapters is Nynaeve going through her testing, and it was a very enlightening chapter because you really get to learn a lot about Nynaeve, things that you already kind of know about Nynaeve, but it just really cements this about her character, and I feel like I became even more attached to her after this whole scene because it was very panic inducing. I was really worried about her in the beginning, and she's such a strong character, even if her temper bothers me sometimes, but as a character she is so great, even if these little decisions she does kind of grates on my nerves. So we also get to meet Tom Merrilin again. We realize that, or we learn that he is alive, and he doesn't necessarily want to join in with the group, with the hunt in the beginning, but of course the girl that he is with now is murdered and kind of forces his hand into it. And one of the comments mentioned the woman in the refrigerator trope, and I wasn't aware that this was a thing, but after reading about it, it kind of opened my eyes to about a lot of books that I read. Very interesting. I'm not going to get into talking about that trope right now because we're talking about this book. That's more fun. Egwene and Min were captured by the Seanchan, like I mentioned before, and we learn a lot about the Seanchan and how they take over these towns and have these oaths and promises, and they enslave women channelers, and just really the psychological effect on Egwene after this experience is very prominent and understandable. Like I said, Nynaeve and Elaine have to rescue Egwene and Min, which they do. I was kind of surprised that Egwene was rescued so fast. I honestly felt like if she had remained in captivity, that could have been a plot line that lasted the whole next book even. You know, it was something that could have really flourished Egwene's character and really gave us more insight into the Seanchan as a people, give Rand, you know, one more thing that he has to try to do or accomplish, or even Mat and Perrin to go after her. I felt like there were a lot of plot lines available with that line, but she was rescued pretty fast, which, because of Egwene and because I love her character, I'm very glad that she didn't have to stay captured that long and that she was rescued so fast. But thinking of potential plot lines did kind of give me pause and wonder what in the world is going to happen next if he didn't even take any of these plot lines that he had available. So it could be pretty wild from now on. Toward the end, we get another favorite chapter of mine, which is I can't remember the name, but it's the Flicker chapter, and everybody seems to remember it because it is such a good chapter. It is so great, and we see that Mat, in his visions, he sees himself betraying Rand, and that's really going to be weighing on him. It already does. Perrin does see some things, but we don't know what they are. He's very standoffish and even further removed from the Aes Sedai, like Varen, who he's been traveling with. He won't even let her help him at some points. So I want to know what exactly they saw in their visions, and it was a very well done chapter. So toward the end, we have the Seanchan and the Children of Light, and they are basically about to go to war at Tommenhead, and Mat blows the horn. We have Archer Hawkwing coming and with his band of champions, and they basically take care of the battle while Rand fights Balsamon once again, but they are actually up in the sky. Everyone can see them, and he basically lures Balsamon into attacking him so he can counterattack. Rand is very hurt, but Min ends up saving him. Her and Egwene have some words about Rand. Just a little bit of romantic drama kind of sprinkled in there at the end. Nothing too major, but Egwene, we can tell before the battle really kicks off that she is going to be struggling with some PTSD from her captivity, and it makes a whole lot of sense. I'm really looking forward to Egwene's story at this point. I want to see how Robert Jordan handles her PTSD and what she's going to do, how she is going to change from here on out. I don't know if she'd be willing to go back to Tar Valon. She may have already gone back to Tar Valon now that I think about it, but anyway, I don't know how she's going to handle her training from now on, how her points of view are going to change, and that's something to look forward to. While Rand is convalescing, basically Lanfear comes and stakes a claim on him when he is with Min, so that's more information that we're going to be getting. I'm very interested in Lanfear's character. So at the end, the majority of the characters, except for, I'm gonna have to read this list. So most of the characters except for Min, Moraine, Perrin, Loyal, and Rand head back to Tarvalin. So we've already split the party back up again to begin the Dragon Reborn. So I'm very interested to see how that's going to play out, because I feel like just splitting up and getting back together is going to be a big part of this entire series. So I don't think I'm going to worry about making predictions for the party being split, the party getting back together. It's just going to happen so often that I don't think it's going to be worth really predicting it. Now, I know in the previous videos I talked about the convenience of dark friends, and how I was concerned about how this was going to be an issue or a crutch, if you will, that Robert Jordan may lean on to create some conveniences for the characters and for his plot, just inserting these dark friends wherever he feels like he's going to need them in the future. While part of me says that that is not necessarily bad writing, that's very harsh and not exactly what I mean, but I also was thinking about it, and you know, they have had basically 1,000 years, several hundred years at least, to really infiltrate these people into these different lines. So basically, you know, all these different factions like the Aes Sedai, the Children of the Light, the Seanchan, just regular village folk. It does make sense that dark friends could and would be almost everywhere. If you have 1,000 years to work on a plan, infiltrating these big factions, for a lack of a better term, would be a big plan. That would be, you know, your number one priority would be to infiltrate these institutions that stand against you and what you are planning. So I'm going to be more lenient about dark friends and who and where they are from now on, because when I really thought about it, like, my gut reaction was to reject it, to not really like that they're everywhere. But if I really think about it, it does make a lot of sense, and it wouldn't make sense for the Dark One to try to infiltrate these places, because he's trying to rule the world. Basically, he wants to re-break the world, and he knows the way to do it is to turn people. That's why he has dark friends in the first place, and why wouldn't you want dark friends in the Aes Sedai or the Children of the Light? It makes perfect sense. Ooh, oh my goodness, I cannot believe that I forgot my most hated character, even more than Liandrin. I hate Selene. I hate her so much. So much. She meets Rand when they are taken by the Portal Stone, and she meets him a couple of other times back, you know, in the real world, in their real time. And just every time she is around, she just says something that just makes my skin crawl. It's so creepy and arrogant and just absurd in her audacity that I can't stand her. I hate her even more than Liandrin. I really, really do. She kind of disappears through the latter half of the Great Hunt, so I was really excited about that, but that is also why I kind of forgot about her, because she kind of disappears, but then Liandrin comes into play, and Leandrin's actions of giving the girls to the Seanchan just really kind of took over what I was immediately thinking about, so I kind of forgot about Selene, but I still absolutely hate her. And you can guarantee that I will have a little mini rant about her probably every time she comes up, even if it's just one sentence, because that's how terrible she is. So it is time to talk about my predictions for the Dragon Reborn. I think we are definitely going to learn more about Lanfear, which is exciting because she seems to be a pretty interesting person. I also think that the Seanchan are going to become a more prominent player in these dragon games, and I'm kind of excited about it because they have a lot of people, they have a lot of things moving, a lot of different motivations going on, that I want to see how that plays out, and how the girls like Egwene is going to react to the Seanchan just being in the world and an active player in the story. I also think that Mat will finally be healed in this book. I feel like if it goes on longer to where the dagger is taken from him again, or what have you, I feel like that storyline, that arc might be stretched out a bit too much for good authorship's sake, I guess. I don't even know what to actually phrase that as, just authorship, goodness. But I feel like it might be stretched out too much if he's not healed in the 3rd book. So for Rand, I have several predictions. I think he's going to outwardly become the dragon, you know, well known. I mean, most of the people have seen him in the final fight, but I think he will finally kind of accept it and he will just come out as the Dragon Reborn. I think he's going to start assembling armies and bringing basically these nations together. I think he's going to help with Karhin's civil war that is happening. I think he's going to try to resolve that. And I think he's going to find another iconic item because he lost his heron marked blade, the blade of his father. And I think that is such a tragic loss, but I think he's going to get something bigger and better. So another one that I guess might kind of be a gimme is I think that another seal is going to break. The seals that hold the Dark One back, I think another one is going to break. I feel like that's probably a give me. That's going to be what happens slowly but surely throughout this series. But I think another one's going to be broken in the Dragon Reborn. And I also predict that I will still hate Leandrin and Selene. No surprise to anybody. But I digress. I am very excited to start the Dragon Reborn. I do plan to just really go through this a lot faster than I did the Great Hunt. I will probably have to take about 2 weeks off of the weekly postings for these, and that is basically to ensure that once I have the Dragon Reborn videos going, that there won't be any breaks in between them like the Great Hunt. I know a couple times over the summer, just because of life, I had to take a week or 2 off, you know, between these videos, and I kind of lost some steam for some people, and I'm terribly sorry about that. So my number 1 goal is to try to make it to where I only have to take a week or 2 in between these 2 books, and then once I start posting, that my film schedule is going to be very consistent. That way there won't be breaks while we're in the middle of a book. Again, that's going to be my new goal. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the predictions, how you feel about the Great Hunt as a whole, because I do feel like it's stepped up from the Eye of the World quite a lot, but I feel like that these books just aren't quite what everybody is talking about, and I feel like that's only because we're really getting started. So I'm really excited to keep going with the series. It's really good so far, and I love all these characters, and I can't wait to see where they go. So just leave me a like and a comment, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in a couple weeks with some more Wheel of Time, but I will have other videos up, so check those out. Y'all are as good as gold. Y'all take care.